Hey, hi, hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Amber, and today I'm going to be sharing with you a weekly reading wrap-up. I'm a little bit late just because I wasn't sure if I was going to continue on or not, but I am. So I have 3 books that I've finished that I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to go through what I am currently reading, and I am melting my face off right now, but we are going to continue on. So first the first 2 books I'm going to talk about is We Could Be So Good by Kat Spesha, and also by the same author, You Should Be So Lucky, or You Should Be, yes, You Should Be So Lucky. So in this one, we meet Nick Russo, who has worked his way from a rough Brooklyn neighborhood to a reporting job at one of the city's biggest newspaper, but rather, the late 50s is not a good time to be gay. And so he's very much has his walls up. He's very protective of himself. And a lot of that has to do with the fear of what would happen if he was found out, especially by the cops at the time. And but then he meets Andy, who happens to be the newspaper tycoon father's, the owner rather of the newspaper son. So Andy's father wants him to take over the business, but Andy has no intention of doing that. He doesn't think that he would be good at it, but he does agree to work for a year in the newsroom, and that is how they meet. And we see their friendship grow as Nick keeps rescuing Andy and helping him through all the bumbles and fumbles that he loves to do because he's a bit of a scatterbrain type person. I'm going to talk about my thoughts about this one first. But in this book, you meet in We Could Be So Lucky. We meet Mark, who is the main character in You Should Be So Lucky. So with this book, I absolutely enjoyed this book so much. Nick and Andy's relationship is built on a real strong foundation. I loved seeing them actually have formed this friendship first, and then see that friendship turn into this romance, and the consequences of that romance on both Andy and Nick, especially with the time that they're living in, and that fear that especially Nick has to deal with. Andy's fear is a little bit more different, which is formed. Those fears are formed with his experiences when it comes to his mother, who also was a news reporter, journalist. So, anyways, my thoughts on this. I will say that I think, which is why I have this as a physical book, is I need to reread it. So I read both of these books as audiobooks, and for the first one, I felt like the book was just so long. But I felt part of the reason why I felt like it was so long was just because I took a couple of breaks, which was not really a good idea. So the book, I think, felt longer than it actually was. But what I will say about it is I do feel like she kind of has all these reveals and resolutions right at the end of the book, which just felt like everything just got clogged down there. And I think that we could have spread some things out. I also would have loved a little bit more discussions around the news article story that he was writing, because it centers on cops, and as we know, him being gay, there is a lot of risk that he was taking doing a series of articles on cops at that time, because he was definitely putting a target on his back. Also, I'm not gonna, I don't think this is a spoiler, but because it's not, well, connected but not connected. But anyways, Michael is Nick's brother, and he is a cop, so that plays a part in the reason a lot of the tension that Nick is dealing with in his life. He has a lot of familial tension going on, and it's definitely centered around his brother, who is a crap person. So, anyways, the one thing that I did have an issue with is how she ended things with the brother. I just wish that it been more like, I'm not going to talk to this person anymore. I don't think that he's a good part of my life, and I just can't have him. And that his resolution was that he was just going to keep his distance from Michael as best as he could, while trying to keep the ties open with the rest of the family. But instead, it kind of felt like the author was trying to make Michael forgivable in a way. He does something that prevent something from happening, and I'm just like, I feel like the author was kind of trying to make it out like maybe I'm gonna have to reread this and then I see my opinion changes on this, but it felt like she was trying to make it him like the possibility of forgiving him, and I'm just like, no, just let Michael be what he is, because there's so many people like this, and the book and the romance is just good enough that we don't need to have some kind of thing going on with Michael. Like, just let him be what he is. He's a homophobic cop and a cab all day long, so I will never really have any forgiveness in my heart for Michael, especially because he would put Nick in a situation because of him being a cop. But either way, I just think that we have this idea that just because someone is family, we can't cut ties with them, and I'm like, no, you can't cut ties, because anybody who's going to cause you harm or has caused you harm, whether that's emotional, physical, otherwise, you have every right to just say no more. And I just wish that had been Nick's decision, is no more. But anyways, absolutely enjoyed this book. It gets 3.5 stars. Then You Should Be So Lucky, which is the second book, and we meet Mark. And as I said, we do meet him in the first book, and Nick didn't really like Mark for some things that you'll know if you've read it. But anyways, in this book, this is during the 60s, so I think this was like a year and a half to 2 years separation from this one to You Should Be So Lucky. So we meet Mark, who is not a sports writer. He writes for the Friends page, and he's really having a really bad year, and he just kind of just wants to be left alone. He's dealing with the loss of his partner, and of course he's just never been able to be public about it because obviously the times that he was living in. And then he ends up, basically his boss is like, I want you to ghostwrite these diaries weekly about this baseball player, Eddie O'Leary, who is having a hard time because he basically badmouthed his whole team that he had just been traded into, and the manager and everything, live on TV. So they hate him. They're not talking to him. He can't seem to hit the ball. And yeah, he just hasn't been, So anyways, so they meet. Eddie thinks that Marcus not being like he's a baseball player, don't really care about baseball. But okay, this one is just boring. I will say, like, if you don't really want much but romance, fine, because like there's just nothing. Everything just conveniently resolves out of the book. Like, you think, what happens when he does this, or what happens when this comes up, and it's just like, it just conveniently happens that they're an ally. We're just gonna veer off this way so that it doesn't have to be worried about it. So like, if everything is just conveniently happening, and I get that the author wanted this I think the author just wanted this to be like low stakes, but I just like feel like I know like the 60s things were slowly starting to change, so that might have played a part in like why she was like, we can get away with this a little bit. But I still think that in early 60s things slowly change, and are still not really changing, but so it's just like another thing where I was just like, this is a little bit boring. I didn't really feel like there was any time where like you were worried about these two's relationship. Like, even when they had the conflict thing, it just was like, he just was like, there was never really anything. It was like, one was like, I can't, it's not gonna work, and then the other was like, I'm not letting you off with that bullshit. No, like, they never really like broke up when they broke up. Anyways, I just found both of these characters to be annoying as hell. Okay, I like them, but I also just did not like them, if that makes sense. Like, I liked seeing the relationship develop, but I also just didn't really like them in a lot of ways. In some ways, like, Eddie, he just whined about the fact that he couldn't hit a ball, but he never actually tried to do anything. Like, he didn't go out at night to practice hitting the ball outside of his own team. He didn't try to do anything to correct himself. And I get that part of it was probably because his teammates were hating on him and he just didn't know how to handle it. But it took his teammates after a certain thing to be like, we're going to take you out ourselves at night and like help you fix your hitting. I just like if he was wanting to really stop his teammates from hating him, part of that would have probably been retraining himself, like trying to find ways to like snap out of it, start practicing hitting the ball on his own, whatever he could do to like help get himself to hit the ball again. Like, but he wasn't really doing any of that. And then Mark was just constantly like trying to self-sabotage his relationship, trying to make out like Eddie was so dumb and like he couldn't think for himself about like couldn't like, oh, he doesn't know. And I'm just like, seriously, he doesn't know. He's been living gay all his life, knowing what it is. Just because his experiences with it was different than you doesn't mean that he doesn't understand the best. It's just that he's choosing to live freely, as much as you can during that time. But I just found like both of them to be like frustrating and sometimes annoying, especially Eddie, because of that. So I give this one 3 stars. I think it's a good book, but I just think that some of the things, especially the whole whining about the hitting the ball, took too long. And maybe that's just because I don't like baseball myself. I don't like baseball. I don't. I still remember when I was a elementary school go person, and I will never really forgive these people because I think it was wrong of them to do this, because I know for 100% sure that this was not a field trip for us. It was a field trip for the adults. There was this baseball game, and they're like, "Oh, we're going to take the students for a baseball game." No, it was just for them to watch the baseball, and we were able to like just kind of like run off. But I could have gotten lost. Everywhere, the teachers weren't even paying attention to us. So, like, I got lucky that I did not just wander off into unknown land because I got stolen or whatever. But it's just, yeah. Anyways, just a random thought that I had. So, the next book that I finished was The Dressmaker's Gift by Fiona Volpe, and this is a World War II novel. And I knew from the beginning that I was not going to really enjoy this book. I knew that it was going to be repetitive in the way that it was formatted, and it's just another typical World War II novel. And I just didn't expect it to be like this bad. So it's told in the same story that you typically get with these kind of books. You get 2 generations, whatever. Never mind, sorry. Not 2 generations, but, well, yeah, technically, I guess you could say it's 2 generations of people. But anyways, in present day, 2017, I believe, it doesn't actually say, but I saw somewhere in the reviews that somebody could call it, said that it was like 2017, so I'm going to say that's 2017. We meet Harriet, who is rootless, adrift, trying to find a connection with her past. She ends up in Paris, living and working in the same building on the Rue Cardinal, where she learns the truth about her grandmother and herself. And then we go back into Paris, 1940, and obviously it was occupied by the Nazis, and we meet 3 seamstresses. Marielle, who is fighting with the resistance, Claire, who is in a relationship with a German officer, and Vivienne, who, for whatever reason, we don't know what she has. I am going to be spoiling this book. I'm going to be talking about everything in spoilers. So if you do not want to be spoiled, all I will say is that the reason for why Claire is, for a certain thing that Claire decides to do, is completely atrocious. I actually was quite angry about it because there were so many other better reasons for her to do what she chose to do rather than that. And also the reason for Vivienne's secret, I have no clue, because the way and when it was revealed did not have any impact on the plot, had nothing to do with it. I also found it problematic about how she talks about generational trauma. That is a not spoiler. I give it 1 star. Let's talk about it in spoilers now. Hopefully I won't be going too long. But if you want to just try to skip a little bit, I don't know how to do time. Maybe if I can do time, whatever you call it, you'll be able to skip to the currently reading part section. But either way, let's talk about the spoilers. In a general sense, the writing was overly simplistic. The characters had no depth or development. And again, like I said, I had some major issues with the way that she talked about the generational trauma, specifically in how she kept harping on this idea of like it being connected to genetics. And I'm just like, I feel like that's problematic, and it takes away how we make a choice in how we react to trauma, and that choice is like, whether it's positive or negative, it impacted we impact others by it, you know, like especially like if you have children and like you have like all these traumas from your own childhood, uh, it's gonna form your decisions and how you choose to raise your child, that kind of thing. I don't see that as genetics. I do know that depression is actually, uh, but that's still not genetics. So like, I didn't really like it. I think like, I just, I think she was just trying to find another way of being like, oh, we're so connected because we're dealing with all these traumas, and it's, you know, like maybe, you know, I'm just like, but that's not genetics. That's just the consequence. That's the reaction. That's how someone's reaction impacts you. Like a choice that someone is making based on their trauma. Anyways, moving on from that, because like I'm not very articulate about that. I do think that it rubbed me the wrong way, but I'm not really knowledgeable enough to like talk about that. I just think that there was a better way to deal with that. Anyways, I'm going to talk about the lesser things, and we're going to go to Chloe last. So Vivian, throughout the whole book, we do not know what she's doing for the resistance. We do know that she has one of those radio things. I don't know what they're called. Transmitter radios, you know, where you like pick something up and then you talk through the thingy and, you know, transmit something to someone. Like, I guess she's talking to somebody, but we don't really, like, we see that, but that's like later in the book. We don't find out her part in the resistance until after she has died. So, like, right at the end of the book. I also find it frustrating that she basically dies on the same day that the Allies show up to the concentration camps and freeze everybody. Anyways, I found it really frustrating that we don't know nothing. We don't get her perspective throughout the book. So we have no knowledge of what she's doing, only through the little tiniest bits that Chloe and Mariel are able to like guess at and see. And that's just not enough. And then when we finally find out it's after, and it's through this guy, Monsieur Leroux, who's like the go-between guy between them with the resistance, and he like says what she did, and I'm just like, okay, cool, she did the thing, but I don't see why we needed to keep it a secret at all. And I know, like, obviously you want to compartmentalize that in itself is fine, like I get that, but like we knew through the perspectives of both Mariel and Chloe what they were doing, and obviously because they were doing similar things, they were like, I just didn't think that there was any real need for Vivian's part to be so secret. And then like there's this other secret, which I get why they did, because then like because they were siblings, and so Monsieur Leroux is the brother of Vivian, and I get why they kept that a secret, mostly because then they couldn't, like, if nobody knew that they were siblings, that if they one or both of them got caught in some way, neither one of them would, you know, they wouldn't use them against them, because obviously nobody would know. So like I get that part. I just did not understand the point of keeping that a secret. So I just think this book was just too short, and I wish that we had Vivian's perspective, because then maybe her part in the resistance would have had more impact and actually would have brought something to the story. But yeah, I also find just seeing how Mariel it helps this French soldier, I believe, out, and in that moment of like, and just like just a day, like he ends up having to stay in their apartment for the night. So like they're together for maybe like 2 days, and they don't really know each other, but somehow they're in love. Then we have Monsieur Leroux, who somehow magically out of nowhere is in love with Chloe, and at the end of the book we know that they're together. Just like, okay, this is just no convenient. And the same thing with Harriet, like in present day, like she, like, it's like everybody gets paired off. I'm just like, why? Why did everybody need to be paired off? Who knows? But also, in present day, we also have these 2 terrorist attacks, which, like, yes, horrible events, but she doesn't really fully connects it back to anything that has to do with the past plot or anything. I just didn't really understand what was her purpose in talking about it. She never once really made a point with it, so I just was like, okay, I don't understand. So, anyways, here comes the part that makes me actually angry every time I think about it, because I'm just like, why? So at the beginning of this book, when we're in Chloe's perspective, Claire, oh my god, I've been saying Chloe this whole time. It's Claire. Her name is Claire. Anyways, Claire, um, she purposely moved to Paris because she wanted a better life. She was wanting to make more money. She wanted to be able to buy her pretty things and eat well, which was not something that she grew up not being able to have any of those things. So I get the frustration of like coming to Paris, then realizing, oh my god, one thing I was here for, I'm not able to get. But instead of recognizing that it's the fucking Nazis, uh, she's just like, I don't really care, about this. She doesn't see that enough of reasons to resist. So at the beginning of the book, when Mariel shows up at the same job that Claire is working in, she's like, Mariel's like, hey Claire, I'm working for the Resistance. Do you want to come work with the Resistance with me? And Claire's like, oh no, not really. I'm really just wanting to have a good time. Like, she doesn't say it like that, but she's just like, I'm just here for a good time, basically. She doesn't really care. And it's not even that she was scared about being involved in the Resistance. Like, I would have understood, like, her resistance, but her reluctance to join the Resistance if it had been like, I'm just, like, really scared because it's dangerous. I don't really know if I'm up to that kind of risk. And I would have understood that to a point, but her reasoning for not joining the Resistance was a little, just superficial. And then she ends up actually joining the Resistance, but it's not because she realizes that it's the same German that that German officer, yeah, he's one of the people that's there to oppress you and keep you from having the good life that you want. It's not recognizing that people are dying on a regular basis by these Germans. No, it's not her brother coming to her work and telling her that her brother died at the hands of the Germans, that her other brother is in a German work camp and that he's going off trying to rescue him, and him condemning her for being in a relationship with the traitor. No, it's none of that. It's her having her heart broken by this asshole because she finds out rather, that he isn't actually married. It's none of these actual solid good reasons. It's just this superficial, oh my god, my heart broke with me. I'm just like, seriously, I don't see that as a good enough reason, and it really just frustrates and angers me that that was the way that this author chose to go with it. Like, it just angers me because I'm just like, seriously, you had all these other reasons, and specifically how she actually like brought an impact to her personal life. And it also just makes me feel like, oh, her reaction to finding out that her brothers were like she didn't really care, because the very next thing that she does after she finds out is go off on another date with this asshole, and I'm just like, what? Like, and especially with how dangerous it is to be part of the Resistance, you would think that you would have a better reason than, oh, my heart broke, I don't want to the fucking night. Like, come on. I couldn't with that. And I don't even understand. This book has very high ratings, but I'm just here being like, there's all these things about this book that's just good. Especially the reason for why she chose to be part of the Resistance. It's just not a good reason. Not a good reason at all. Anyways, 1 star for that. Did not like it. So I'm going to talk about what I am currently reading. And excuse me while I drink some water because it's freaking hot and I'm melting. So first, I'm going to share with you the book that I have just started listening to, or that I started listening to it yesterday, I think. And this is Have We Met by Camille Baker. Now, I'm reading this as an audio book through Everend, and this looks like a book in so many days where, like, I've noticed a glitch in the audiobook, so I think I might have to see if I can. It's on Kindle Unlimited, so maybe I'll just get the ebook of it at some point. I'm gonna finish it through the audiobook, and maybe if I like it enough. I don't really. I don't know what I think about this book so much. Anyways, we have Corinne, who has lost her best friend to cancer. She ends up like her life is kind of like in flux. Like I think it's gotten to that point where like her whole life was like centered on like being there for her friend. So she never really got a chance to really focus on finding her career, finding her place in life. So she moves back to Chicago. She's getting like she just is getting these temp jobs while she's trying to find the career that she wants. But then a mysterious dating app called Met suddenly appears on her phone, and it's basically saying it's like oh you have a chance to reconnect with 4 misconnections from friends, and one of them is your soulmate. So like she doesn't really like she doesn't take it seriously, and so she's just like okay whatever. So she just kind of like ends up going with it, and she starts meeting these people from her past. But all the while she is slowly falling for this guy that is part of her friends group, who happens to have like the same nickname as her. So it's interesting. I am enjoying it for the most part, but I'm just like, I wonder how this app is going to be played off. Like, because it kind of like reads like, oh, there's like this little bit of a sci-fi. It's like, I just thinking like how is she gonna reconcile that whole thing? But we shall see. I am not too fond of the way that the person is narrating, but it kind of makes everybody sound snotty and hoity-toity. I don't know, like that. It's just I'm not really enjoying the way that it's being read, but I am enjoying the story so far. So maybe I actually would enjoy it better if I was reading it myself. But anyways, the next books I have are physical. And the first one is The Unbroken by C.L. Clark. I did not realize when I picked this up that it was not completed. I actually thought these books were completed, and maybe that was why I actually hadn't picked it up before now, because I was waiting for that third book, which isn't coming out until next year, apparently. So I am 200 pages in. This is about Train, who was stolen from her homeland when she was a child, and basically abused, forced into serving in the military, and now she's being sent back to her homeland to stop a rebellion. Then you have Luca, who is trying to take over the throne. Now, I thought she was literally going to try to overthrow her uncle, but no, there's like this whole thing where she's supposed to actually get the throne. So she's trying to find a way to earn her way onto the throne. And I think she's gonna have to realize that she's gonna have to overthrow her uncle because he does not want to give away his power. So she's trying to find a connection to the rebel to negotiate with them, and so she ends up using Terrain, and we kind of see there's a lot more complexity to this than I actually was thinking it's going to be. Like, and I'm glad that there is. Like, I find Terrain can be frustrating, but I also find that to be actually a good thing, because like she's dealing with, I consider it brainwashing. Like, she kind of like tricked herself. They tricked her. She tricked herself. All this stuff into like thinking that being faithful to the Aryans were actually a good thing. And then we have Luca. I think she's gonna have to try to like step out of like her own loyalty to her own empire, that kind of thing, to try to like make things work with rebels. There's one character, and also neither one side is black and white. Like, there's no this group is the villains and this group is the good guys. Like, there are good and bad people on both sides. So really enjoying this so far. I'm going a little bit slower than I would like, but I am reading it. Now, onto the last book that I'm going to read, which I have started reading this book because I watched The Young Woman in the Sea with Daisy Ridley. It's on Disney, so if you have a Disney Plus subscription, or the way to watch it, I don't know, but I do know that it's on Disney Plus. You can watch it there. Now, I I was halfway through the movie, or rather, I was where they were at the Olympics, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna do a quick Google search on this person, and I just found out that they completely lied about that. They lied. They just they lied. They made it out like she didn't win anything. She didn't win any awards. She won like how many? How many? How many? Like 3 gold medals, um, something like that. She won multiple medals, and she made what do you call it? She made records. Like she made and broke records. Like, give me a friggin' break. I felt like the movie was making things more dramatic than it needed to be, and by doing so, rewriting history, which kind of peed me off, especially because they made the father seem like a complete asshole. But the father is actually, he actually supported his daughter. He wanted her to succeed at crossing the channel. So, anyways, if you do not know, Gertrude Ederle, she was the first woman to succeed crossing the English Channel, which is 21 miles, and it's not easy, especially when you consider the currents, the weather that could happen, sharks, jellyfish which were poisonous, like, oh my god. So anyways, in my Google research, I found out that there were 3 books that were written, and I have requested all 3 of the books, and I got the first one a couple days ago. So I am currently in the middle. I've read just like 1 chapter. The chapters are kind of long, and I don't really want to overwhelm myself. So this book has 10 chapters, I believe. Oh, 12 chapters. So it's gonna take me about 12 days. That's fine. To finish this book. I wasn't really putting it to be like the way that it's being written. So yeah, I don't know. Like it starts off with her doing the first try in 1925, and then which is basically what that first chapter covers. So one of the things that we see in the movie is her being poisoned by Wolf. Now, there is a lot of like, oh, like it may have been poisoned, it may not have been. There's like you can construe it, and so I 100% think that he poisoned her. I just 100% think that she was poisoned. He was looking for a way to take her out of the water. So yeah, I am. I think this is told kind of like in a narrative style, sort of. Also, Gertrude Italy's niece is part of writing and putting this book together. So there's that. I will talk more about the other 2 books as I go. I've been like taking pictures and sharing it with my brother because he watched the movie with me. So I've been just sharing my discoveries with him as I go. And I'm going to keep those because I'm going to compare each book as I read them because I'm curious how the other books are going to handle, especially the poisoning aspect of this, because I think that he poisoned her, but it'll be interesting to see if the other authors agree on that or not. And I'm curious how they wrote the books, but I was looking for more of like a more like a linear timeline where like we go from her childhood and we like get dates and we it's all the non-fictiony stuff. This is more like a narrative style, so it's not bad by any means. I'm just not fully, I don't know, but we shall see. It does kind of like I noticed that it kind of takes like it goes veering off to talking about Kellerman, who is another swimmer, and I'm hoping that means that I'm hoping that it'll connect back. I don't think the other women. I don't think. I think the other women deserve to be acknowledged and recognized for their feats and their attempts because obviously she was not the only woman to attempt this. 1920s, like after the First World War, women getting the right to vote, a lot of changes were on the horizon, and obviously a part of those changes were them fighting for the chance to be a part of things like sports and swimming across the channel, and a lot of women were actually flocking to the English Channel to make their stand against the English Channel. So I think they do deserve to be recognized, but I'm curious as to like how Kellerman is connected to Italy. So anyways, I'm like 20 26 pages, yeah, 26 pages into this. I'm going to be continuing on, like right now, shortly, trying to get a good chunk of this done. So I'm going to be done. Those were all the things I read and all the things I am reading. I would love to hear your thoughts on any of the things that I have read, and also I would love to hear from you about what you have been reading. Until next time, thank you all so much for watching.